Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. Introduction. There was a man who played through fevers so high they would have sent most of us to bed for a week. He played through crippling back pain, sprained ankles, and pulled muscles. One day, after being hit in the head by an 80-mile-per-hour fastball, a blow that knocked him unconscious for 5 terrifying minutes, he showed up to the ballpark the very next day. The swelling was so bad his own hat wouldn't fit, so he borrowed one from his teammate, the legendary Babe Ruth, and he played. For 2,130 consecutive games, Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse, played first base for the New York Yankees. Think about that. For 17 years, from April to October, without rest, he showed up. Not because he was never hurt. Not because he was never sick. But because he was a man who had absolute command over his physical form. Years later, when doctors x-rayed his hands, they were stunned. They found at least 17 healed fractures. He had broken nearly every one of his fingers over his career, and not only had it not slowed him down, he had never said a word about it. This wasn't just about toughness. It was about a deep, quiet power. The power of self-control. A power that shapes not just a career, but a life. A power that determines our fate. Today, we're diving into a book that explores this very force. It's called Discipline is Destiny, The Power of Self-Control by Ryan Holiday. This book is the second in his brilliant series on the 4 ancient Stoic virtues: courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. This one is all about temperance, or as we better know it, self-discipline. Holiday is one of the world's most widely read philosophers, with his books selling over 5 million copies. He doesn't just write about philosophy, he lives it, on a ranch outside Austin, Texas, away from the noise, practicing the principles he preaches. And in this book, he makes a powerful argument: the ability to conquer yourself is the only thing that allows you to conquer the world. So, here is my promise to you. By the end of our time together today, you will understand the one fundamental secret that separates the greats, from emperors to athletes to artists, from everyone else. It's not talent. It's not luck. It is the quiet, daily, unrelenting practice of self-discipline. And you'll see how you can begin to wield that same power in your own life, starting today. This isn't just about building good habits, it's about forging your very destiny. Book summary. Let's begin with the place where all discipline starts. Not in the mind, not in some grand plan, but in the most immediate and tangible thing we have: our body. The Stoics believed that if we can't rule our own physical form, we can't rule anything else in our lives. Our body is the training ground for the soul. And no one understood this better than Lou Gehrig. His story isn't just about being tough. It's about how that toughness was built. He was born to poor German immigrants in New York, a massive 14-pound baby. He was the only one of 4 children to survive infancy. Growing up, he wasn't a natural athlete. Friends joked that his body behaved as if it were drunk, but life gave him reasons to become strong. He was teased by school kids for his size and for his poverty. He often came to school on cold winter days with no coat and no hat. But instead of letting this break him, it hardened his determination. His father was a drinker, often making excuses and calling in sick to work. Gehrig saw this and was shamed by it. He made a silent vow to himself: he would be the opposite. He would be dependable. He would be tough. He made it a non-negotiable part of who he was. He started going to a German gymnastics club, building the powerful body that would later drive in so many runs. He wasn't born an athlete, he made himself one. He saw baseball not just as a game, but as a profession that demanded total control over the body. Fitness was almost a religion to him, a teammate once said. Gehrig himself put it more simply: I am a slave to baseball. But he was a willing slave, a grateful one, who loved the work itself. This love for the work is a critical piece of the puzzle. When you truly love what you do, you don't cheat it. You respect every part of it. Gehrig never threw his bat in anger. The only time he got in trouble with management was when they found him playing stickball in the streets with neighborhood kids after a Yankees game. He just couldn't pass up the chance to play. Of course, there were days he didn't feel it. Days he wanted to quit. Days he was tired, frustrated, and doubted himself. But he had cultivated the strength to not listen to that voice. Because he knew that once you start compromising, you're compromised. He wasn't a saint. He knew his discipline meant he missed out on some of the fun his teammates were having. Babe Ruth, his legendary teammate, was a notorious glutton. His breakfast was often a pint of whiskey with ginger ale, followed by steak, eggs, and potatoes. He ate hot dogs by the dozen and drank soda by the gallon. His life was a party. But Ruth himself later regretted it. He told Gehrig, "Don't be a sap. Keep in condition. I made a lot of mistakes. Later I had to pay for all those mistakes." Gehrig understood a deeper truth. Those who live the fast, easy life miss out on something far more valuable, realizing their full potential. Discipline isn't about deprivation, it's about securing the ultimate rewards. Early in his career, Gehrig hit a slump and tried drinking to calm his nerves. A seasoned coach saw this and pulled him aside. He explained the long-term costs of that shortcut. That was the end of it. Not because Gehrig thought drinking was evil, but because anything that interfered with his ambition to be a great ball player was poison to him. This is the first lesson of mastering the body. You have to decide what you're willing to give up to get what you truly want. You have to quit being a slave to your impulses. Think about Dwight D. Eisenhower. After a lifetime of battles, after defeating the Nazis in World War II, he faced one of his toughest enemies, himself. He was a 4-pack-a-day smoker. A 38-year habit. In 1949, he gave himself the order, quit. And just like that, he did. Cold turkey. He never touched another cigarette again. The only way to stop is to stop, he said. What are you hooked on? Your phone? Soda? The approval of others on social media? The physicist Richard Feynman once felt a slight pull to have a drink in the middle of the afternoon. It wasn't a strong craving, but it bothered him that something outside of himself had that kind of power over him. He gave up drinking right then and there. The core idea is an instinctual reaction against anything that masters us. As Seneca said, "Show me a man who isn't a slave." One is a slave to sex, another to money, another to ambition. The first step is to recognize your dependency. The second is to get clean. Whatever it is, if it has control over you, you must regain that control. This brings us to another key pillar of physical discipline, avoiding the superfluous. The Stoics knew that when we desire more than we need, we make ourselves vulnerable. Cato the Elder, a great Roman statesman, never wore expensive clothes. He drank the same wine as his slaves. He said, "Nothing is cheap, if it is superfluous." His goal wasn't to suffer, it was to be independent. A man satisfied with boiling his own turnips for dinner, as one of his heroes was, could never be bribed or tempted. By being a little hard on ourselves, by choosing discomfort, we make it harder for others to be hard on us. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would periodically live like a poor man for a few days. He'd eat only bread and water, sleep on the ground, and wear his coarsest clothing. He did this to prove to himself that he could endure hardship, so that he wouldn't fear losing his wealth. Is this what you feared? He would ask himself. This practice of seeking discomfort toughens us up. Success breeds softness, and softness breeds fear. We become afraid of losing our comforts. By choosing to be cold, or hungry, or tired in small, controlled ways, we vaccinate ourselves against the inevitable hardships of life. The strenuous life, as Theodore Roosevelt called it, is the best life. Born a weak, asthmatic boy, Roosevelt remade his body through relentless exercise. Walking, boxing, hiking, rowing, he was always active, even as president. He knew that working out wasn't just about building muscle, it was about building willpower. Every day, he got a win. He treated his body rigorously, he said, so that it may not be disobedient to the mind. Contrast him with King George IV, a notorious glutton whose breakfast included steaks and a bottle of wine. He grew so fat he couldn't even sign documents himself. His last words were, "My boy, this is death," as if surprised that a life of total indulgence had consequences. But this discipline isn't just about grand gestures of toughness. It's about the small, daily rituals. Consider the writer Toni Morrison. At the beginning of her career, she was a single mother of 2 young boys with a full-time job as an editor. By the evening, she was exhausted. So, she made a choice. She would wake up in the dark, every morning, before her boys uttered the word mama, before the demands of her job began, and she would write. In those quiet, pre-dawn hours, she was free. She was clear-headed. She was full of energy. It was then that she could be a writer. That sacred ritual, practiced over years, produced 11 novels, a Nobel Prize, and a presidential medal. This is the principle of attacking the dawn. In the morning, you're free. Your willpower is at its highest. The world hasn't had a chance to wear you down yet. As Marcus Aurelius asked himself, waking in his warm bed, "Is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm?" The plants, the birds, the bees, they are all going about their tasks. Why aren't you running to do what your nature demands? This connects to another simple but profound idea: just show up. Thomas Edison said he had no imagination. His genius, he claimed, was simply that he hung around his laboratory day and night. If anything happens, he said, he's there to catch it. He lived in his lab. He never missed a day. The compounding power of consistency is a kind of superpower. You don't have to be amazing every day. But you do have to show up. A good hitter in baseball hits .300. That means they fail 7 times out of 10. The key isn't to never fail, it's to stick around for the next at-bat. And when you show up, you sweat the small stuff. The legendary basketball coach John Wooden began his first practice of every season the same way. He would teach his star players, the best recruits in the country, how to put on their socks and shoes. "Men," he'd say, "this is how you put your shoes and socks on." He'd show them how to smooth out the wrinkles to prevent blisters. Why? Because a blister can lead to an infection, which can lead to favoring a foot, which can lead to a broken ankle, which can end a season. The devil is in the details, but so is salvation. Greatness is in the details. Because of a blister, the game was lost. Because of a nail, the kingdom was lost. Get the little things right. This includes your environment. Outer order creates inner calm. Robert Moses, the master builder who shaped New York City, worked off a large table with no drawers. Why? Because there was no place to hide papers. He had to deal with every memo, every report, right away. He couldn't let things pile up. A messy workspace leads to sloppy work. A person who eliminates noise can hear the messages from the muses. So, clean up your desk. Make your bed. Get your things in order. Then get after it. Part of getting after it is hustle. In the American Civil War, President Lincoln was endlessly frustrated with General George McClellan, a brilliant soldier who just couldn't seem to get his army moving. "He's got the slows," Lincoln said. He was too cautious, too conservative, too afraid to act. In life, as in war, you have to get up and go. There has to be a sense of urgency. But, and this is a crucial balance, you must also learn to make haste slowly. Festina lant. This was the favorite saying of the Emperor Augustus. He knew that rushing, that putting efficiency over effectiveness, is ultimately not efficient at all. In the military, they say, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Do it right, and it goes quickly. Try to go too quickly, and you'll have to do it over again. The tortoise beat the hare because the hare was brilliant in bursts, but not consistent. The tortoise just kept moving. It's okay to move slowly, provided you never stop. And that relentless movement is practice. Then practice more. The master swordsman Miyamoto Musashi had a phrase for it: Chotan Seiki Ren. Training from morning to night. 1,000 days of training to develop, he wrote, 10,000 days of training to polish. We don't rise to the occasion, we fall to the level of our training. You must practice so much that your skills become second nature. This all comes together in one simple command: just work. The author Joyce Carol Oates has published over 100 books. Into her 80s, she is still working. While her peers were at fancy parties or nursing addictions, she worked and taught. Taught and worked. I come from a part of the world where people did work rather than just talk about it, she said. She found what she was meant to do, and she just did it. The reward for the work is the work itself. Finally, mastering the body is about managing the load. The great basketball coach Greg Popovich was once fined $250,000 for resting his star players during a nationally televised game. The league was furious. The fans were angry. But Popovich was playing a longer game. He knew that burnout and injuries are far more expensive than a single game. Sometimes, the hardest and most disciplined choice is to rest. The indiscipline of overwork, as John Steinbeck called it, is the falsest of economies. And this includes sleep. In the military, they now talk about sleep discipline. It's something you have to enforce on yourself. The best way to master the morning is to have mastered the night before. Sleep isn't a luxury, it's an act of character. All of this, the toughness, the rituals, the rest, is about building a body that can endure what life throws at it. Ernest Shackleton's Arctic expedition was trapped in the ice for nearly a year before their ship was crushed and sank. They made a 350-mile dash in lifeboats to a desolate island. From there, Shackleton and a few men sailed a tiny 20-foot boat over 700 miles of the world's roughest seas to find help. Then, he came back and rescued every single man. His family motto was Fortitudine Vincimus, by endurance we conquer. The body is a metaphor. It is the training ground for the mind and the soul. What are you willing to put yourself through? What can you produce with it? Temperance in the body affects the mind. If you are physically bankrupt, your brain cannot possibly do its job. It starts with the body. We restrain it, we dominate it, we treat it like a temple. We constrain ourselves physically to free ourselves mentally and spiritually. But what happens when the battle isn't just with your body, but with the storm inside your own mind? This is the inner domain. The temperament. And here, our guide is one of the most remarkable figures of the last century, Queen Elizabeth II. When Winston Churchill first met her as an infant, he noted that she had an air of authority and reflectiveness that's astonishing, but her path to the throne was not direct. It was only after her uncle abdicated in a fit of passion, and her father died young, that her destiny was set. At 25, she became queen. Her job is unique and, in many ways, terrible. She can't pass laws. She can't choose the government. She can't even speak about policy. And yet, she is informed of every action, every problem in her kingdom. For over 70 years, she has performed this role with near superhuman dignity. Some 25,000 days in a row, every day has been game day. She has traveled over 1 million miles, met over 4 million people, and in all that time, through countless long, boring events, she has been seen to fall asleep in public only once. How? It's her temperament. An American official once saw her preparing for a long day. She was standing stock still, he said. It was as if she were looking inward, getting set. Resting in herself. This is mental and emotional discipline in action. She personifies the stiff upper lip. In 1981, a gunman fired 6 shots at her while she was on horseback. She barely flinched. When an intruder broke into her bedroom, she didn't scream. She politely entertained him until security arrived. But her discipline isn't just about stoic endurance. She is quietly brilliant. She reads every ministerial document in her red box, every day. Not because anyone quizzes her, but because it's her duty. She affects change not by giving orders, but by asking quiet, persistent questions. In a noisy world where everyone wants to express themselves, the Queen's power has been in her quietness. This quiet strength is a form of focus. A weak mind must be constantly entertained. A strong mind can be still. This is the challenge we all face in a world of endless distraction. To focus is a superpower. The composer Beethoven would be in the middle of a conversation and just disappear. When a musical idea came to him, he would lock into it, consumed. They called it his raptus, his flow state. This wasn't indulgence, it was an act of immense self-control. It's easy to be distracted by distractions. To truly focus on your main thing, to ignore everything else, that is the mental battle we must win. To do that, you first have to know what your main thing is. Booker T. Washington was an incredibly busy man. He ran the Tuskegee Institute, traveled, lectured, and wrote 5 books. How? He had the discipline to say no. The number of people who stand ready to consume one's time to no purpose, he said, is almost countless. If you don't know your priorities, you can't know what to say yes to and what to say no to. You become vulnerable to every shiny object, every request, every "it'll only take a minute." Keeping the main thing is the first step. Saying no to everything else is the second. And once you've cleared the plate, you have to have the discipline of patience. Joyce Carol Oates, after finishing the first draft of a manuscript, puts it in a drawer for a year or more. She lets it gestate. She acquires perspective. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. Almost everything that matters takes longer than we'd like. But patience can curdle into a dangerous vice, perfectionism. The dancer Martha Graham was once so bogged down in a piece she had choreographed that she despaired of ever finishing it. "This work is no good," she whimpered. All she could see were its flaws. Her musical director had to step in. "One cannot always create on the same level," he told her. "Transitions are as important as achievements. The biggest failure of all is failing to get your shot off. What you don't ship, what you're too afraid to release, is, by definition, a failure." The antidote to both procrastination and perfectionism is to do the hard thing first. Don't wait. Don't warm up to it. Eat the frog. When Toni Morrison wrote in the morning, she wasn't folding laundry. She was doing the hardest, most important work of her day. When she was done, the rest of the day was a bonus. She had already won the most important battle. But what happens when you lose a battle? When you fail? In 1959, the heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson was knocked down 7 times in one round and lost his title. He was humiliated. He was done. In the entire history of boxing, no heavyweight champion had ever regained his title after losing it. He moped for weeks, sick with guilt. Then, a letter arrived. It was from Archie Moore, the very man he had beaten to win the title in the first place. "Dear Floyd," it said, "I know how you must feel. You can be the first one to regain the crown. You can do it." That moment of grace from his rival was exactly what he needed. The pity party ended. He got back to training. A year later, he knocked out his opponent and became the first man in history to regain the heavyweight championship. We all mess up. We fall off our diet. We lose our temper. We get beaten. Discipline never fails us, but sometimes, we fail it. The question is, can you get back up? Losing is not always up to us, but being a loser is. Being a quitter is. Part of this inner battle is also the fight against pain and pleasure. John F. Kennedy was in almost constant physical pain. As president, he took a terrifying cocktail of amphetamines, painkillers, and even antipsychotics. "I don't care if it's horse piss," he once told a doctor, "it works." But it didn't really work. The pain was still there, and the drugs created a fog. He was trying to escape his pain, not solve it. The one thing that actually helped was simple, hard work, stretching, weights, and exercise. We must be suspicious of anyone who tells us they can make our pain disappear without real work. The same goes for pleasure. The philosopher Epicurus is often seen as a hedonist, but his idea of pleasure was not gluttony or debauchery. By pleasure, he said, we mean the absence of pain in the body and of trouble in the mind. It is sober reasoning, not an endless succession of parties. Babe Ruth wasn't having fun when he was rushed to the hospital, sick from too many hot dogs. We are self-disciplined not because pleasure is a sin, but because we want to avoid a hell of our own making. This inner strength is also what allows us to fight provocation. Arthur Ashe's father once drove his wealthy Jewish boss, William Thalheimer, to a real estate deal. The seller insulted and bullied Thalheimer relentlessly. Yet, Thalheimer endured it quietly, completed the transaction, and got the land. Ashe's father asked him why he put up with it. "I came out here to purchase that piece of land," Thalheimer explained. "I got the piece of land. That man can go on cursing me as long as he likes." He knew his goal. He refused to be distracted by provocation. It takes two for a conflict to happen. When we are offended, we have chosen to engage. We can decline the invitation. This is the key to controlling the mild madness of our passions. Anger, lust, envy, even excitement, they can carry us away and make us do things we regret. Sam Cassell, a basketball player, hit an incredible, game-changing shot. In his excitement, he did a celebration dance so vigorous that he fractured his hip. His team, the top seed in the playoffs, lost in the next round. He traded a championship for a few seconds of taunting. A fit of passion blinds us. The antidote is silence. The ancient Spartans were masters of this. They never used two words when one would do. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. And by holding their fire. When France was collapsing in 1940, they begged Churchill to send the entire Royal Air Force to help. Every part of him, a man of action, must have wanted to say yes. But he paused. He reflected. "This is not the decisive point," he replied. He knew the decisive moment would come when Hitler attacked Britain itself. He held his planes back, a decision that saved his country. The fury of a patient man is a powerful force. We must also temper our ambition. A young Napoleon once wrote a brilliant essay warning against the dangers of ambition. Ambition is, like all inordinate passions, a violent and unthinking fever that ceases only when life ceases. If only the older Napoleon, the emperor consumed by conquest, had listened to his younger self. Alexander the Great conquered the known world, but a coffin was enough to contain him in the end. He had waged wars for himself, and it left him empty. Ambition must be a tool, not our master. The same is true of money. Babe Ruth made more money than the president, but usually started spring training broke. F. Scott Fitzgerald earned millions in today's money but died broke and alone, his talent worn out by the constant need to write for cash. Money is a tool. It can buy freedom, or it can become an addiction. You don't need fuck you money. You just need enough to politely say, "No, thanks," and stick to your main thing. All these battles, against distraction, impatience, perfectionism, failure, pain, pleasure, provocation, passion, ambition, and money, are part of a larger war, the war to get better every day. The Japanese call it kaizen. Continual improvement. Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback in history, isn't obsessed with winning. He's obsessed with improving the accuracy of his passes. The process of getting better is his drug. To err is human, but to err less each day is to become closer to the divine. And you don't have to do it all alone. A leader must know how to do anything, but they cannot do everything. Sometimes, the best way to manage the load is to share the load. It takes discipline not to insist on doing everything yourself. Finally, we must respect time. It is the only truly non-renewable resource. When we kill time, we are killing ourselves. We have to learn how to use time, or it will use us up. This means putting up boundaries. Keeping your private life private. Not getting entangled in other people's drama. Being strong enough to communicate what you will and will not accept. A country without borders isn't a country. A person without boundaries is not a person. They are a doormat. And in all of this, in this constant, difficult struggle, you must remember one final, crucial thing. Do your best. A young Jimmy Carter was being interviewed by the formidable Admiral Hyman Rickover. Rickover asked him where he stood in his class at the Naval Academy. 59th out of 820, Carter said with pride. Rickover wasn't impressed. He asked, "But did you do your best?" Carter had to pause. He thought about the times he had coasted, the times he could have worked harder. "No, sir," he confessed, "I didn't always do my best." Rickover's final, haunting question was simple. Why not? Doing your best insulates you from outcomes. Your success doesn't go to your head, because you know you're capable of more. Your failures don't destroy you, because you know there was nothing more you could have done. You always control whether you give your best. This is the essence of mastering your temperament. It is to build a mind that is focused, patient, resilient, calm, and dedicated to the quiet, daily work of becoming better, no matter what the world throws at you. This brings us to the final, highest plane of discipline. The magisterial. The soul. This is where mastering yourself physically and mentally comes together to create something transcendent. It's where you not only conquer yourself, but you elevate yourself to serve others. Our guide here is a man you've probably never heard of, and that's precisely the point. His name was Antoninus Pius. For 25 years, he had served Rome flawlessly. The dying Emperor Hadrian named him as his successor. It was everything he had worked for. But there was a catch. Hadrian believed the true future of Rome was a young boy named Marcus Aurelius. Antoninus was just meant to be a placeholder, a throne warmer. In the brutal world of ancient Rome, this was a death sentence. A rival is not mentored, a rival is eliminated. Antoninus could have consolidated power, named his own son as heir, and secured his own legacy. But he didn't. For 23 years, he ruled as a masterclass in temperance. He quietly got to work at the unfair, thankless job he'd been given. He mentored the boy who was meant to replace him. In his entire reign, not a single drop of blood, foreign or domestic, was shed on his orders. He was so indifferent to fame that when the Senate offered to rename the months of September and October after him and his wife, he declined. Why? Because his aim wasn't greatness for himself. It was service. He was a teacher. At the root of the word discipline is discipulus, or pupil. It implies a student, but also a teacher. Antoninus was the teacher, and Marcus Aurelius was the pupil. Marcus watched his adopted father and learned. He learned how to handle a migraine and go right back to work. He learned how to live simply, even with immense wealth. He learned to enjoy life's comforts when they were there, and not miss them when they weren't. He learned to ask searching questions, to never be content with first impressions. He learned to own his mistakes. He learned to be tolerant with others, but strict with himself. This is the rule we must all live by. The only person you get to be truly hard on is you. Ben Franklin said it best, "Search others for their virtues, thyself for thy vices." Kobe Bryant was one of the most dedicated players ever, but he struggled because he couldn't accept that his teammates couldn't all be Kobe's. He drove them as hard as he drove himself, and sometimes, he drove them away. Antoninus, on the other hand, made people better through his example. When he died, his final word was equanimitas. Equanimity. Now it was Marcus's turn. Fate was not as kind to him. He faced floods, plague, barbarian invasions, and betrayal from his closest friend. The decline and fall of Rome was upon him. But he saw it all as an opportunity. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. When he was given absolute power, the first thing he did was give half of it away, naming his stepbrother as co-emperor. When Rome's treasury was depleted by plague, he held a 2-month-long yard sale on the lawn of the imperial palace, selling off his own jewels and his wife's silk dresses to fund the state. He could have raised taxes. He could have seized property. He took the hit himself. Because that's what great leaders do. They do the right thing, especially when it costs them. They carry the load for others. General Jim Mattis was once found working the guard post on Christmas Day. The young Marine who was supposed to be on duty had a family, and Mattis thought he should be home with them. The privilege of command is command. You don't get a bigger tent. In fact, you take the smaller one. This is grace under pressure. Hemingway's definition of courage. It's poise when it counts. After a terrorist attack in London, the Queen expressed her admiration for the people who were calmly determined to resume their normal lives. That is the answer to this outrage. It's Martin Luther King Jr. being savagely beaten on stage by a white supremacist. After the first punch, King dropped his hands like a newborn baby and literally turned the other cheek, offering himself up to his attacker. As the crowd surged forward in anger, King shouted, "Don't touch him. We have to pray for him." It's possible to punch a person with that kind of compassion, but it is impossible to beat them. It's Sandra Day O'Connor, who gave up her lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court to care for her husband with Alzheimer's. When he forgot who she was and fell in love with another patient at his nursing home, she didn't hide in shame. She used her platform to raise awareness for the merciless disease, saying with a brave face, "I'm happy it makes John happy," even as it was breaking her heart. That is what commitment looks like. Sometimes, the most disciplined act is to make an exit. Not to charge ahead, but to retreat with dignity. At Dunkirk, the British Army suffered a massive defeat, but the orderly and miraculous evacuation of 340,000 troops inspired the nation. Wars are not won by evacuations, Churchill said, but there was a victory inside this deliverance. You have to know when to cut your losses, when to live to fight another day. And sometimes, you have to endure the unendurable. In 1802, Beethoven, tormented by his growing deafness, his failing health, and his broken heart, contemplated suicide. He stared into the abyss. But he pulled himself back. "It was only my art that held me back," he wrote. "Oh, it seemed impossible to me to leave this world before I had produced all that I felt capable of producing." And so, he endured. And because he did, we have his greatest symphonies. Sometimes, even to live is an act of courage and discipline. This is the ultimate aim, to be best. Not to win, but to be honorable. It's not the office that brings distinction to the man, it's the man who brings distinction to the office. The battle to be the best has less to do with beating others and more to do with beating down the flaws and selfish instincts inside yourself. This requires flexibility. The master swordsman Musashi knew that as you practice something 1,000 times, you risk becoming rigid. So he studied art and poetry. He deliberately pushed himself out of his comfort zone. He refused to be a prisoner of his own methods. An oak tree stands tall, a trainer once told Muhammad Ali, but it has to bend and sway or be knocked down. Oak makes good coffins too, he added. And finally, you must be unchanged by success. After the Berlin Wall fell, Angela Merkel had one beer and went home. She had work to do the next day. Even after becoming one of the most powerful leaders in the world, she lived in the same rent-controlled apartment and shopped for her own groceries. What impressed people was that she didn't use her power to purchase an ego. The payoff for all our discipline is more temptation and more distraction. The only solution is even more self-mastery. Self-discipline is virtue. And virtue is self-discipline. These things are not just words on a page. They are deeds. Freedom cannot be sustained unless it is tempered by private restraint. A people without self-control, John Adams said, would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. In the end, it all comes down to a choice. A choice we face not once, but 1,000 times a day. Hercules at the crossroads, choosing between a life of ease and a life of hardship and virtue. The Bible tells us not thou shalt, but thou mayest. You can if you will. The choice is up to you. Dependence or independence, greatness or ruin. Discipline is destiny. It decides. Will you choose it? Commentary. Ryan Holiday's Discipline is Destiny is more than just a book about self-control. It's a powerful reminder that the greatest battles we will ever fight are the ones within ourselves. And that winning those battles is the only path to a life of meaning, freedom, and true success. What I find so compelling about this book is its humanity. The heroes here are not perfect saints. They are flawed, struggling human beings. We see Churchill's financial recklessness, Martin Luther King Jr.'s personal failings, JFK's dangerous dependencies. And yet, at the moments that mattered most, they were able to draw on a deep well of self-discipline to do something profoundly great. This makes their example not intimidating, but inspiring. It tells us that we don't have to be perfect to be great. We just have to be disciplined. We have to get back up when we fall. We have to keep trying, day after day, to be a little better. The book is a blueprint, a call to action. It's easy to read these stories and feel inspired for a moment, but the real challenge is to translate that inspiration into action. So, if you take anything away from our time today, let it be these 3 simple practices. First, attack the dawn. You don't have to become a writer or an emperor. Just choose one thing that is important to you. Something you've been putting off. And give it the first, best hour of your day, before the world has a chance to distract you. Win that first battle, and you'll carry that momentum through the rest of your day. Second, do the hard thing first. Look at your to-do list. Find the one thing you are dreading the most. The phone call you don't want to make. The workout you want to skip. The difficult conversation you need to have. Do that first. Get it over with. The relief and sense of accomplishment you'll feel will be immense, and the rest of your day will feel like a gift. And third, find your Cato. Choose a role model. It could be Marcus Aurelius, or Lou Gehrig, or a grandparent, or a teacher. Someone whose character you admire. When you face a difficult choice, a temptation, or a moment of weakness, ask yourself a simple question. What would they do? Let their example be your guide. Let it stiffen your spine. In the end, discipline is not about punishment. It's not about a life of grim, joyless deprivation. It is the exact opposite. It is the path to freedom. It is the key that unlocks your potential. It gives you the power to build the life you want, rather than being a slave to your impulses and the distractions of the world. It allows you to become the person you were meant to be. That was a summary of Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. We've explored the core ideas today, but I have to be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It can show you the layout, the major cities, the rivers, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking the trails, breathing the air, and meeting the people. The real magic of this book is in the quiet moments when one of Holiday's stories connects with a struggle in your own life. This summary is a starting point, a way to see if this journey is for you. If anything we've discussed today has struck a chord, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely reforge the way you see your daily choices and your ultimate potential. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the ideas that have shaped the most successful people in history, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.